Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast. Today the podcast jumps into the world of physical challenges, charity work, engagement, and supporting and acknowledging the wider family that is the fire service. I'm joined by Simon Thompson, and we're going to hear all about his story. But before we jump in there, let's hear from our Firefighters podcast family. A big thanks once again to our partner Blue Light Card. Now, Blue Light Card, they work to recognise the hard work and commitment of those individuals carrying out some of the most important jobs in our community by offering members an amazing selection of online and in-store discounts at over 15,000, that's right, 15,000 commercial partners across the UK. I strongly encourage you to head over to bluelightcard.co.uk. I mean, me and my family have been investing in some tech recently. Now, of course, we headed over to Blue Light Card like we always do to check what discounts were available. We upgraded our Sky package, got like 25% off. Bought my daughter an iPad the other month, and we got an Apple saving as well from Blue Light Card, and all of our phone contracts with O2 as well. And yeah, that's right, Blue Light Card have got us a discount, looking after us every single direction we turn. My strong encouragement is do not make a financial decision, do not make a purchase without checking out bluelightcard.co.uk. A massive thank you to William Wood Watches, a long-term partner of the podcast. Now, I'm a massive fan of this brand. I've had my Valiant watch now for probably 2 years, and I get so many mentions on it. If you're somebody that's into their firefighting history, if you're somebody that likes something classy, something sharp, but also something functional, then you've got to head over to williamwoodwatches.com. If you're an emergency services geek, or you love your fire service memorabilia, the authenticity that's behind this brand is absolutely incredible. It's all based around the owner, Johnny, and his grandfather, who was in the fire service for 25 years. He won commendations for his bravery and passed away, after which Johnny started the brand, and this is now the legacy of his grandfather. One of the really memorable acts of William was actually on the 29th of June 1966, when he and 3 fellow firefighters saved 5 small children, aged between 5 and 1, from a severe house fire. And you feel that a lot when you look at the watches. For example, the straps. I mean, that's always the one that really gets the mention. When people see it and they go, hey, that's such a unique piece. The red fire hose that I have on my straps are made from hose used by the London Fire Brigade. That iconic red strap comes from hose that's been in the service for a minimum of 10 years. I'm talking stuff that's getting thrown down the street at road traffic collisions, it's getting hauled up the side of buildings. You know, it's actually been in there in the thick of it. And you can see this on the markings as well. Mine's got some black markings around the edging of it, where it's obviously been impregnated with a chemical of some form at some point on an incident. You know, it's actually been out there on the front line. But I mean, they've also got it in the yellow, the green, the blue. So no matter what watch you belong to at your service somewhere across the world, you can make it personal to you. Now, the Valiant collection I've got is such a stunning piece. It's got the Super Luminova on all the dials, so day or night you'll still be able to see what you're doing, still glance at it on the middle of the night at a job and still get the time. I was also surprised when I was swimming at night the other week that obviously it works underwater as well. Even down to the small things. You glance on the side of the watch, you've got the British brass firefighter's helmet. It's been sort of melted down and carved into the side of it. It's such craftsmanship, I absolutely love it. Bigger than all of that, it's just the story behind it. It's a perfect thing for a Christmas or a birthday gift that any firefighter or lover of the emergency services is the perfect gift. Now, I know I keep banging on about my Valiant, but they've also got the Bronze Edition, the Chivalrous, and earlier this year they brought out the Triumph collection. This one was an absolute game changer, a stunning timepiece. So head over and check them out. I think they're running a 10% discount at the moment, so get straight over there. WilliamWoodWatches.com, an incredible partner of the podcast. Also want to give a shout out to our media partners, the Emergency Services Times and the Emergency Services Show. We're also working in line with the Cheshire Fire Challenge and the British Firefighter Challenge. Competition's back on in the UK towards the end of 2021. All the details are in the notes for the show. And that's the names in the frames for today's episode, folks. So without further ado, let's jump in there and listen to Simon. Simon's undertaken one hell of a challenge, and it's a pretty inspiring episode as an example for people that can achieve some pretty heroic stuff by implementing small but significant daily challenges. So let's jump in there and hear how he's done it. Buckle up for safety, ears up, eyes down, and I will see you on the other side. You sound great and you look even better.
Oh, well, likewise. How you doing? All right?
I'm fantastic, brother.
Good to meet you. Good to meet you.
You have put a self-imposed, somewhat primitive, really nasty expectation on yourself. And I love it. And, you know, this is where I suppose we'll come into the main part of the podcast, is that you when I heard your story and when I heard what you're doing, it triggered, I've got like a really big, obvious physical torture button that probably stands out to the world. And when I see another just absolute savage like yourself punch that button, I've just like stand up straight and just point me in the right direction and press play. And this kind of speaks to what we were just talking about, in that coexistence of chaos and peace, and comfort and discomfort, and predictability, but also the unpredictability, how we feed those two wolves in our mind. So for anybody that's completely unaware, Simon Thompson, welcome to the Firefighters podcast, first and foremost. How is it, brother?
Thank you. Cheers. How you doing? All right?
I'm awesome, my man. You are Group Commander, UK Fire and Rescue Service, joined 2004. And during this crazy pandemic, you have set yourself somewhat of I would just say, this self-imposed crazy challenge. For a little bit of an introduction, tell people first and foremost why we're having our conversation today and what it is you've set yourself to do. And you're looking pretty good for someone that's quite far the way through it when people are about to hear what you've been doing.
Yeah, thanks. No, cheers. So yeah, I suppose through this lockdown, from the 1st of December, I started this challenge. So I'm planning to do 44,597 press-ups between the 1st of December.
Because you didn't say it wrong, but people might think they've heard it wrong.
Yeah, 44,597 press-ups.
44,000.
Yeah.
1,000.
Yeah.
It's 597. Wow. Okay. Yep. Just so people have got that one.
So I started off on December 1st. And I plan to finish by May the 4th, because obviously it's a really significant date for us in the fire service community.
It's Star Wars Day, isn't it? So
it is, yeah, exactly, yeah. So we, So I kind of thought, yeah, let's just do it, and sort of started punching some numbers around. It means that I do 350 press-ups a day, 6 days a week. And I try and give myself a rest day. I had someone tell me ages ago it's really important to have rest and recovery days. I never really ever took that concept in. Just wanted to punish yourself and just get on with things. So yeah, in practice, some of the rest days have gone, if I'm honest with you, because some days you kind of go, actually, I'm a little bit behind. A couple of crazy days over Christmas with some floodings locally that knocked the progress back a little bit. But yeah, so far I've done 31,425 to this second. So I've done a couple hundred this morning, and I'll finish off with a few more.
So when we were talking about this, I've written down, and you'll see me continue to glance off to the right, because my head, I had to control myself, because I went into the physical training aspect, then I went into my rehab world, then I went into this accountability world. And there's so many places I want to go with this, but can we just close the loop on why are you doing it? Because you're doing it for quite a good cause as well.
Yeah, so I'm doing it to raise money for the Firefighters charity. And I suppose for me, and we'll talk through, I'm sure, in the future, but I've got a long-standing knee injury that I suffered before I joined the organisation. And I knew that was going to need me to have some further operations on my knee. And back, 10 years ago now, I had to go back to the Firefighters charity home. I had to have a clean-up operation, which sounded nice and simple. But at the point where I was walking into the operations theatre, having already spoken to my boss and said, I'll be back in a couple of weeks, so everything will be all sorted. They then said, what do you do for a job? And I was like, I'm a firefighter. And I was like, yeah, 4 or 5 months off minimum. And it kind of hit me like a bombshell. And I certainly sort of went into the operation thinking I'll be back in a couple of weeks, because it's just a quick clean-up operation, to, oh, wow, hang on a second, this is really impacted. So I had 3 weeks down at Harkham House in 2011. And ever since then, I've always had this hankering, and it's taken me absolutely ages to come up with something that I felt was right and worthwhile doing. I kind of had some crazy thoughts around trying to do some cycle challenges and stuff, doing all different things like that. Running probably always out of the equation. I'd love to do a London Marathon or something like that, but just the training, I think, would knacker my knee up completely. So I kind of I sort of stumbled across something like this and thought, yeah, I'm in lockdown, and started trying to do some stuff as we entered lockdown, take some accountability, and try to actually use the lockdown as an opportunity to say, now hang on a second, just pick yourself up and get on with something, get some physical fitness back, get into the power of habit. And I kind of wanted to try and I wanted to do something. And to be honest with you, when I first started, I thought, I'm not sure if it's big enough. I'm not sure people are going to really look at this and think that's challenging. And I had a couple of days, I suppose, where I sort of done a couple hundred a day and thought, yeah, that's all right. A bit sore, but that'll be all right. And then just thought, yeah, let's just give it a go. And like I said, I wanted something. I'd read some stuff, Ross Edge's book, Art of Resilience. I found it incredible reading.
That's awesome, isn't it? Love Ross.
It's a great read.
I used to train at university where I'm from. There's a couple of weird dudes, as I look back over the last 10 years now, that have actually emerged and gone on to do different things. But yeah, Ross actually used to train in the same gym as me. It's weird.
Wow, he's an absolute beast. He's an absolute beast. This is the thing, like reading through his stuff and sort of seeing what he'd done going around the country. I kind of thought, actually, it's just that kind of that relentlessness. And I kind of wanted something that felt a bit ridiculous and kind of felt, hang on a second, I'm going to be doing this for 5 months. And certainly my wife was like, you've got 5 months of this. What are you doing? And I was like, yeah, good.
Because just to paraphrase from that book, because you're absolutely right in what you say, but for anybody that perhaps hasn't read it, he speaks a lot about the fact that it's nothing to do with swimming. And people are like, well, wait a minute, Pete. No, you're ridiculous. I've seen the thing. He swims around the country. But he'll say himself, as anybody that goes to look at it or hears the audiobook, he says, it's can you get in the water every day? Just can you keep getting in the water? Because sometimes with the tides and all this sort of stuff, and your challenge is similar in ways with incidents, family demands. You've done this through Christmas. You've done this through a pandemic, and also your role within the emergency services can be very mentally and physically challenging at times. So it's more that consistency and not allowing yourself to slip into the trick of, well, it was quite easy today. Maybe I'll go for more. It's more that, like you said, you've spoke about habit, resistance, resilience, and consistency more than anything else. So I totally hear you, but sorry, I just wanted to give people that idea. If they haven't read the book, they should all go and read it, by the way.
You should read it. Yeah, you should read it. It's a good book. Yeah, and absolutely. I think, and that's the key. I think that we all find ourselves in this absolutely mad world where there's so many different triggers and pushes and pulls from different parts of your life. Personal life. People have found things very, very challenging through this period of time for a number of different reasons. Working from home has been fantastic for some, been horrendous for others. I found myself working from home just because of the fact that that's what we're doing there to try and make sure that we're protecting the front line as best we possibly can. And even those going into stations, really, really tough through this period of time. And so I think it's kind of, I say it's that release, it's that opportunity to kind of go, no, you know what, actually get yourself up, get moving. And I think one of your previous guests, Ryan Barrett, mentioned about the fact that just getting up, getting going, get moving, like get progressing through the day. And that's kind of, I suppose, certainly how I've sort of tried to take this is, if I can get up and I can get 100, 150 done before I've even had breakfast in the morning, happy days, at least I've started the day on the right foot.
If I can use that moment there to ask about motivation, because motivation is a tricky one, and people say, I'd love to get motivated to do a challenge like what Simon's doing. Motivation's a bit of a trick in my personal, and you referenced Ryan, and you're right, a number of guests have spoken about this, about how you can reverse the calculation, if you know what I mean. Most people think motivation plus idea equals result or equals the win or equals whatever. But you can change it round. It's the same as like 2 add 1 is 3, but 1 add 2 is also 3. You can mess about with it. Because if you just start, like you say, getting up in the morning and just beginning, irrespective of how you might feel mentally, if you can push a few buttons in your life that are reliable anchors, you can manipulate yourself into a situation and almost enter that flow, if you will, for anybody that's familiar with that term and perhaps has read some books in and around flow. You can get yourself into that, even if you don't quite feel it. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure people may have asked you that, Simon, how do you feel motivated every day? And sure, I imagine you don't, or do you feel motivated to do it every day? What keeps you doing it?
No, yeah, you're right. You don't. Certainly some days you kind of go, oh, God, here we go, yeah, back to it again. And to be honest with you, you kind of get niggling injuries and stuff, niggling pains and stuff throughout it all. And I think that, it's funny because everyone said to me, you could be like the size of a hench at the end of this. And it's like, it becomes down to just resiliency of your body and just kind of consistency. And I think that, the motivation for me has certainly been a case of, I'm seeing a lot of people doing some fantastic stuff here. The guys from neighbouring county, my old county, Suffolk, doing the longest ride this year, Land's End, or John O'Groats Land's End. You see people like that, and you click online, you see people doing things, and they jump onto their bikes every single day. And I think it's just a case of taking some motivation from people like that and actually saying, if I can get up, even if I don't hit the 350 for the day, if I've got 100 done or I've got 200 done, okay, I won't take myself too hard. I'll go, okay, that wasn't right today. pick myself up tomorrow, start again. And I think it's about trying. For me, it's about trying different things. Certainly through lockdown, I used to do loads of stuff late at night. You find people in the gym like 10 o'clock at night and all that sort of stuff. And I think sort of flipped it all around and actually doing some stuff in the morning and trying things at different times of the day. And for me, that's really worked. The power of just get myself up in the morning, going, okay, I'm going to have an hour to myself just to get some emails done, get in the gym, do a few press ups, get going, go out for a run, and then go and get the little ones out of bed. And what have you. It's kind of, I think it's just trying different things and find what works for you as an individual, because it's different for everyone, isn't it?
I think, and I say for myself as well, I've personally had a similar evolution to yourself. I used to, when I was much younger, I used to train at really ridiculous times when I was working a normal day job, and then I'd work as a door supervisor, which was a horrible time for my life. And then I'd go and train after that in a 24-hour gym, and this would be like 2-3 a.m., but after a long day. And then I would sleep until like 8 and then just rush in to get into work for 9 and do the whole thing again. Because I think we've been guilty as a society of idolizing the burning the midnight oil, you're a hard worker, getting after it, stay hungry, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And it's really not very healthy, when you think about your circadian rhythm and how we should naturally rise and fall with daylight, because we're still, depending on how you sit in the evolutionary debate, most people will feel and agree that we have evolved from our primates, and we should rise and fall with the sun, and that's how we like to operate. And I found myself, when I started getting up early in the morning, that was the time when I really started to get a lot more progress in my life, and going to bed earlier at night and not feeling guilty about putting the kids to bed and then literally going straight to bed myself. And I'd spend some time with my wife in bed, cuddling or doing whatever else we chose to do, and then feeling okay to go to sleep at like 9, half 9. Because with all due respect, unless you are working the stock market, very few people are getting anything productive done after about 9 p.m. at night. You're not. And equally, just your return on investment at that time of the night, because you're not very effective. You synapses, you're not firing very well. You're forcing it or doping it with caffeine or something like that. You're not really very effective. Whereas getting up in the morning, it's arguably more difficult, because we like to champion that working late at night. But actually, the real challenge for me was getting up early and then flowing into the day, being really selfish with my time for the first hour. I'd be super productive, and then I was the best version of myself when my children would wake up, like you referenced then. I'd be there, I'd have the breakfast bowls out, and I'd greet them. I always used to say to myself, I'd be like, and I'm not the greatest dad in the world, but how would the greatest dad in the world greet their kids in the morning? And I tried to, the fake it till you make it. And I tried to do that. Whether I felt amazing in the morning or not, that was going to be the first interaction. My daughter, with her angelic blonde hair, she's wandering down the stairs with a blanket and with a teddy. She wanders into the kitchen, props up a stool. Says, "Morning, Daddy." Right, what would my first words be to her if I was the dad that I say I want to be and the dad that I say I value? That's the better version of me, rather than the guy that was working till 11 or midnight and then just getting up groggy as hell, or passing her and patting her on the head as I leave the house, which I'm sure a lot of parents do, and I'm not going to vilify that, but I love what you say there, and I think that's a wonderful revolution to have come to.
And I think that's the thing. I think, that's been a big realization. It is power of sleep, and it sounds really strange, but I was exactly the same. Certainly some of my old bosses probably used to absolutely detest me at work sometimes, because I'd be the person rolling in sometimes late, getting disciplined for it and that sort of stuff, because of the fact that you'd be up kind of trying to trawl through work, do stuff, just watching mindless TV and stuff until God knows what hour in the morning. And I think it's not until, exactly as you said, you start looking at kind of the impact you start having on other people and actually trying to be the best version of yourself that day. And I think you've got to give yourself the opportunity to do that, and I think the only way you can do that is by trying to give yourself the time to rest, recoup, have some focus time for yourself, whatever that looks like. And some people will decide to go out for a walk. Some people will say, "I'll just get on with some work." And I think, one of my old bosses put me onto a lot of sort of reading sort of mind development books and stuff like that. And I found the power of mind exceptionally interesting. You start looking at things like focused work activity and focused activity generally, is that actually an hour focused activity in the morning is probably better than 2 or 3 hours trawling through a load of rubbish at night time, just not on it. I think it's been really empowering, I think is probably the word. I think over the course of lockdown, you just sort of try and make some different life choices.
I want to scroll back in our conversation and sort of double click on, you mentioned opportunity, which is a very personal and uncomfortable word for some people. certainly people that have perhaps spoken about this period of time as a great opportunity, some people have difficulty with that only in comparison to how other people may term this time as the worst time in our existence. No one's ever faced a challenge like this. No one's ever at that. And some people have the self-awareness sometimes, not saying that others don't, but to term it as an opportunity. If you could expand on how have you managed to view this as, because I agree with you, but I welcome that your interpretation of it may be different. How have you seen this as an opportunity versus the noise you mentioned about your family and some of the challenges they've gone through in business and stuff like that? And I've had similar, you're in the emergency services, you've got a family. How have you been able to manipulate this situation to take some wins from it? Because you've clearly had some wonderful wins in a very challenging time. Yeah,
so I think fundamentally, I mean, we're exceptionally lucky, I think, aren't we, in emergency services, that, we've been working through this, and that's been exceptionally hard. Sort of seeing some other people out, I use the term in the real world, I shouldn't use that term, I suppose, but other people out there, people are losing their livelihood, people are losing their businesses, really struggling to get by. And I think that actually sometimes just to take a stock of that and think, hang on a second, we are in a decent enough place. We're still getting a wage come through every single month. Yeah, it can be really, really hard and really, really challenging. And I think certainly looking at things from an organisational point of view, certainly we've been on a very testing challenge in the service, in the fact that we're trying to. I remember just before lockdown, I was on station doing some assessments and might be on station, and all of a sudden it's like you're in lockdown. I was like, I'll see you in a couple of weeks then, guys, because I think I'll see it back. And straight away, that then hasn't happened, and that's been really, really hard. But I think we've got a couple of ways of looking at it, and certainly from my point of view, and I think a lot of the services that I've sort of spoken to as well, we've sort of probably revisited how we do things. We were certainly pushing through loads of work, loads of meetings, and in my day job it was just meeting after meeting after meeting, trawling around different parts of the organisation, exceptionally good stuff, and trying to get some really good wins for the organisation and really good stuff moving forwards. But this has challenged us to think differently, and actually us doing things like virtual meetings, as everyone else has done, I think, across the country and across the world. You look at things in a completely different lens. And, I suppose for me, it took 13, 14 hours of commuting out of my week. And you kind of look at that and think, how do I use that? Because beforehand, was I getting into the gym? Not really, probably not, because, that was the least important thing, I suppose, that I was just trying to get into work, get done, get back, look after the kids.
Well, it feels like a selfish thing, doesn't it? Because it's
really selfish.
It's easy to believe that, well, only Simon's going to benefit from that. So how dare you? You've got priorities. You've got people that are relying on you. How dare you look after yourself? But is there an aspect of hypocrisy in that? I want to invite you to explore that, because you're obviously a leader in your role. You champion mental health, and a big part of that is physical health. How do you justify not seeing it as a priority? And I know you do see it as a priority now, but you referenced there about vilifying it a little bit, whereas self-care, yourself, is a really important thing. Yeah,
definitely. I suppose it's the fact that, generally speaking, in the service, we're there for other people, aren't we? I think that's at the core of us. And I think that generally speaking, you kind of spend your entire career, your working life, wanting to do things for other people. And we then forget ourselves, we forget our own personal development at points, we forget our own well-being. And I think that, that you're absolutely right, touching on mental health. And, it's a really scary thought about how much difficulty people will go through in a variance. And I think certainly we've all been there. We've all had times and moments where things have been really, really hard. But for me, certainly tail end of 2019 was kind of in a bit of a rougher place, I suppose. And moving into 2020, when you kind of get to the position where everything just slammed, brakes went on, society just stopped. I think it gave you the chance, the opportunity to kind of go, I just need to refocus. And there was some stuff that started dripping through around this kind of, take care of yourself. And certainly I was sort of looking at things, and we alluded to it earlier on around, what's the best version of yourself for other people. And when it started sinking in a little bit, I thought, there's really something in that. There's something in taking time for myself to try and be the best version of myself. If I can get up and I'm not fueled with just caffeine every single day, dragging myself into work, being miserable as anything, but actually I can get myself up in the morning, get out for a run, feel really good, get the endorphins going through your body, go into work, and actually go into work with a massive smiley face. I think that has a massive impact on other people around you. I think it's really important. It's really important to have that time to allow yourself to kind of, improve yourself and feel good about yourself before you start going into
then
other
when you are
environments.
there, you're more attentive. It's the difference between turning up and being present. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's a very big difference. It's like when people say, "Oh, the lights are on, but nobody's home." You've showed up at work, but are you engaging? Do you know what I mean? And this is something I'm head over heels in love with. Hence for anybody unaware, we're obviously doing this over a Zoom call, but it's really important for me to do it over a Zoom call because I'm a massive advocate of practicing the art of communication. Active listening. Can somebody feel the empathy? Am I listening to them, or am I just waiting for my turn to speak? And what you say there about the self-care, allowing a better version of you to be present rather than just showing up, if I'm hearing you correctly, is so accurate. And again, it sort of echoes back to your analogy of time, having a 5-minute impactful conversation with somebody. And in your role, I'm sure you'll have had this where they'll say, "Hey, Si, can I just have 5 minutes with you after parade," or whatever. Those moments aren't about time as such. They're about intent and how do I want you to feel coming out of this conversation? I want you to feel listened to, and I want you to have faith that I'm going to take something you've shared with me in confidence and take action on it, or at least think about it and reflect upon it to give you a respectful answer like you've been listened to, versus just being there. Just being, "Oh yeah, I saw Simon today. He regularly comes in. He was here. I'm here all the time." Do you know what I mean? And again, it echoes back to children. People say, "Oh, you need to spend more time with your kids." No, you probably need to be present with your kids. And I'm not a bloody parent expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not that interesting. I want to spend an hour or so with my kids doing something really interesting, because by then they'll be bored of me and I'll be bored of them. For me, it's about, if you want to learn how to communicate, I always say speak to kids, because the art of communication and brevity, and using 5 words, rather than 50. Otherwise, people just stop paying attention, stop listening to you.
Yeah, exactly. I think that stuff, that sort of positive impact, on kids, and certainly I've seen it with my eldest. She's 2 years 9 months, and like seeing some of that kind of when you give some of that attention, you kind of got that better version of yourself. I mean, she started now asking to do workouts and stuff, and she says like, "Daddy, press ups, let's do press ups." And I was thinking like, that's incredible, and it gives you that real warm feeling that I think, actually, hang on a second, there's a real positive impact. I haven't just sat there on my phone. We all fall into the trap of it, don't you? Sort of sit there scrolling through things on your phone. You think, hang on a second, I've not spoken to my daughter for a couple of minutes here. So I think that's been incrable. And
they learn with their eyes, not just their ears. You know what I mean? And I have that so much. You stand at the school gates and I hear people, try your hardest, do your best. And, with the greatest of respect, the children have every right to turn around and go, are you trying your hardest, Daddy? Are you doing your best? Do you know what I mean? And that's not, we're not trying to vilify people. We're not trying to encourage people to, throw the baby out of the bathwater and say, "Oh, I'm not going to try anything if I can't be the best in the world at it." But it's relative to 100%. If you're giving your best version of yourself, I'm giving the best version of myself. The outcome doesn't really matter. Certainly when it comes to your children, just being there for them, but actually being there, not just being around, being present.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's the key thing. I think it's giving them, it's giving them the opportunity, it's getting them to see that you're looking after yourself as well as looking after other people and them. And I think that's key, because otherwise, how can we ever expect them to look after themselves in the future if we're not prepared to do it ourselves? That's
it. So I want to bring it back in, because I love where we've been there. That's been a beautiful little walk around the values of life, which is what I love most about the Firefighters podcast, in all honesty, because it's not an accident that many people that arrive in this sector are desperately trying to rescue the values and morals that they hold close. And it's this value of association that we find ourselves around other people that hopefully share those values, and we try and lift them up and make them more of an expectation of society. But let's go back to the challenge itself. Now, a small reference from myself. I had a big injury with my chest about 7 or 8 years ago. I tore my entire pec major off. So my right hand side of my body, I ripped the whole thing off. Well, I didn't rip it off. I actually tore the belly of the muscle. So without getting too technical, 2 ends to a muscle, ligaments, tendons, blah, blah, blah. If you rip it down the middle, the belly of the muscle is what tore with me. So it was quite a complicated surgery. Anyway, at the back end of that, I learned a lot about the pecs and the pectoral, a very thin, flat muscle, very, very delicate, very strange. We don't tend to use it very much, because when anybody thinks about developing their body, we don't tend to push away from us under a great amount of load. It's not part of your day-to-day activity. Your calves and your arms and your back can take a lot of repetitive strain because you already do it as part of the way we stand erect as the animals that we are. How have you balanced that? Because we spoke a little bit about the Ross Edgley consistency, art of resilience and all that sort of stuff. Repetitive strain and breaking down the muscle, you really needed to, and I imagine you have done, I'm interested to hear how, gone about this in a little bit more of an analytical way and not just allowed yourself to fall into the, get romantic about, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to get hard. I'm just going to beast mode it. And then, okay, now you've torn something out and it just becomes something you speak about from days gone by. How have you managed to keep going? What's been the ideas?
So I think I tried to look into kind of anyone else that done anything similar at all. And there's some people out there that done some things over the course of a year and kind of built themselves up over a period of time. And one of the things that I was very, very conscious of is that if I'm just using this one muscle group and literally just push, I'm going to probably cause myself an injury. So I've been trying to do a lot of stuff, a lot of counteracting exercises, pull-ups, anything to do with pulling at all, just to try and do anything to rebalance it back out. And don't get me wrong, absolutely, I probably haven't got it right at points, because there's been certain days that I've really got a bit carried away and gone, oh great, I'll go up to, I think 500 and something, or 500 on one day. It was like the best day. But then you start feeling it the following day. And I think to start off with, start getting some things like, wrist pains and what have you, pains in your elbows, pains in your shoulders. I had a period of time where I went and got some acupuncture, which is the first time I've ever had to do that, just because my back started playing up a little bit. But a lot of that was probably also linked that through this, I've been trying to maintain my normal training regime. So, trying to go out for running, cycling, anything else that I can probably do, just because, again, it's about that all body fitness, I suppose. Yeah. And so and certainly the osteopath went, he was great, and he gave me lots of stretches to try and do. I spent a lot of my time just in a door frame, literally just like leaning into a door frame. And through meetings, if I'm off video, I can just put my headphones in, listen to the meeting. I'll be leaning into a door frame and stuff, just trying to stretch myself. So I think, there's been plenty of stretches.
Mobility is a massive part. Mobility and range of movement, sort of without getting too technical, rotator cuff, scapula. You spoke about balance, those push-pull movements, because you've got to be so cautious about not causing any chronic long-term postural problems with constantly breaking down and repairing, predominantly, for simple terms, the front part of your body, without doing anything with traps, everything trying to pull through and balance that scapular abduction. So it's great that you've gone about that, because no matter how even the David Gogginses of the world just break down over time, because persistence is great, but it does come at a cost if you don't, it's not about training hard all the time, it's about training smarter, and you've clearly gone about that in the right way. Yeah,
and I think that's the thing. And I think certainly, like I said, on those days when you sit thinking, I could probably get a few extras out, and there's been times like over Christmas, I fell behind by probably about 400 or 500. I took a day and a half off, and you fall behind because you're doing 350 a day. I had a couple of days where I was operating really busy. That's got to get a scary number. And you then start thinking, I've got to try and pick these up somewhere now.
Where are they?
And so you drop the odd rest day and what have you, which is absolutely fine. You kind of go, okay, right, but you can get quite carried away and go, okay, I'm just going to go and smash out 500 a day. I'm just going to try and do a big number, but then you then really pay for it, 2 or 3 days later on. And I think it's around that consistency. It's been about that longevity of it all. I know this is a long challenge. I know it's kind of, it's going to lead itself up as long as I can get to the position I finish at the right time. And I think obviously that number, I mentioned the number 44,000, that number itself, the significance of that number is it represents every member of staff that works in England Fire and Rescue Service. And that was really key for me right at the beginning, was that I wanted to do something that recognised everybody within the fire service community.
So this isn't just frontline workers, for people's awareness. You are the sort of person that is very aware and appreciative of all of our support staff and how we very much are a fire service family, as much as people give lip service to that term. Yours is a great example of it.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the thing, professional support staff, I certainly couldn't do my job without them. My wife, she works in control, so I get to see sometimes firsthand how really difficult and challenging that is, sat in the control room. Certainly I could never do it. There's absolutely no chance. But yeah, so I want to try and do something that incorporated all of that. So yeah, that's where that number comes from. And yeah, like I said, it's been about longevity. It's about, getting that habit, getting yourself knuckled down, trying to keep yourself fit and active through it as well.
So how have you broken it down? I know you've said about what your daily count is. How does that manifest itself in I'm just going to go and bang out half an hour, just get myself away? Is it headphones on and they are sets of what? How do we break it down?
So sets of 25 I normally achieve. And there's quite a few people that said to me, oh, you must be able to do much more sets now. The problem is because you don't get the rest time, I realise it just hasn't happened because I still feel a bit sore from the day before. So yeah, sets of 25. For me, normally in the morning, I try and get 100, 150 done before I've had breakfast. And actually, I think...
Which is a lovely number. That's 6 sets.
It's a lovely number. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, nice. just to get yourself going, in my view. And I think then through the day, it's a case of, we all know what it's like, through meetings. We sat down at a meeting or we sat down, doing something on your computer. We get ourselves up and try and have a walk around. Whether our watch tells us you've got to get up and stand up for a period of time or whatever it is. And it's just a case of actually, you know what? Yeah, let's just jump down and do a couple of sets and just pick them off through the day. And if I can get to the point, it hasn't happened every single day, I must say. If I can get to the point, I'll get to time I have dinner and put the little into bed and I kind of think I've got another 100 to do. That's quite good. There's been some nights that, you just don't physically start until 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You're thinking, right, I've got to try and drag out. Yeah. And you're finishing at 10, half 10. But because you're starting again at 6 in the morning, it's like, so it's trying just to eke them out, get a few little blocks done. So yes, S25 has been the way forward for me, really.
Do you think there's some irony as well? Because I'll be honest with you, I've got a little interval timer on my tablet that I have sat next to. So I'm on a standing desk now, because this is another just a real efficiency gain in terms of working out for me, in terms of doing work, because I work a lot in my study. Standing desks, just an absolute game changer. If you haven't got one, anybody that's listening, get yourself a standing desk. You can even just make one at home. Do you know what I mean? Just get the desk you've got and put a couple of blocks of wood under it and take it up by 2 feet or something like that. Massive game changer. Interval timer. I know I struggle to concentrate, and there's plenty of studies out there. The magic number is about 35, 40 minutes. You struggle to concentrate on a specific task for any longer than that. I'm not that good. I'm about 20 minutes. So what I do is every 20 minutes, I put 20-minute timers on my thing. And every 20 minutes it goes off. I'll drop down and I'll either hit 10, 15 burpees or I'll hit 10, 20 press-ups or something like that. And some people hear that and go, oh yeah, well that's why you don't get loads of work done, Pete. And I'll actually get more done because it gives me that unplug. It raises my heart rate again. It changes levels. I get that change in the mindset. And also it's really nice that after I've done 2 hours worth of work, I'll also have done 150 press-ups or something like that because I'll have got in 6 sets and I'll have accidentally thrown a bit of a workout in there. And I feel good. I feel more mobile. And my daughter... because we've got a playroom right next to this study, and she hears the timer going off, and she'll be like drawing on her book, or she'll be playing with something, and she'll just hear her go. She's 8 years of age. Down you get, Daddy, and as the timer just pings off, and I like it. And again, it's practice what you preach. And sometimes she'll come in with me, and she'll go, oh, Daddy, you're always doing burpees. Why don't you do something different? Because again, with the chest injury, I tend not to do press ups. But when I heard about yours, I was like, you know what? I might try and do. I'm not quite gonna take on the 44,000. I would never. I don't think I could, to be honest, with the injury. But it's really important for people to get that down. So I want to ask you about the nutrition aspect. We're not going to get too technical in it, but you've got to be able to recover. You can't just be putting mud in the fuel tank and expect the vehicle to perform. So have you always been quite good at that, and have you had to adapt anything, and maybe even hydration as well? Yeah,
no, I've always been. I wouldn't say rubbish. I think that I was kind of a bit in the past. I suppose I've gone to the gym and I'd go and absolutely beast myself. I jump on a treadmill or something, jump on a bike, hammer myself, and then think, it's great. I can go and sort of smash a pizza down my face now, and I feel all right. And so my nutrition probably hasn't ever been the A game. And I think that over this, really, really tried to focus on refuel and loads of water, trying to make sure that.
What does loads and loads of water mean? Sorry to interrupt you. What does loads of water mean for people?
Well, I suppose for me, I was a number of pints. There's this magic number, isn't it? About sort of 2-3 litres of water a day, etc. And I think certainly from my point of view, I've never. It's an element that I've been more interested in certainly recently, trying to look at the right fuels. We're really intrigued around the whole kind of post-workout fueling, etc. I've never done any of that stuff before. It just hadn't.
So much fun, and I know people hear that and they're like, "You've lost me there." Fun, you've lost me, like an oxymoron. It's like workout fun or nutrition, but it can't be. But just hydration. Do you know what I mean? Without getting too technical, our mind, for one, sits in a bucket of fluid. To make it nice and simple for people. water is the God-given source of life. Not God-given, but it's a given source of life. And it's free. It falls from the sky for free. People get up in the morning and they probably douse themselves in the shower with it. They'll stream some of it through a coffee maker. How often are people just picking up a glass of it and putting it in their face? And they go, yeah, but I've not really worked out this morning. Even when you've been lying in bed, you've been breathing out moisture all of the time. And it's kind of like, it's that chicken and egg thing. They're like, but if I drink more and then I have to wee more. And I'm like, yeah, but that's good. Do you know what I mean? I'll wee a lot and your body will adapt. Your bladder and everything adapts. But no, 3 litres is a minimum. When you start getting into it, and for people that say, I don't like the taste of water, electrolytes, a little squirt of lemon, a little bit of fruit in there. God damn it, avoid the sugars. Don't go for the squash. If you can, please, for God's sake. We've just been trained on instant gratification and sugary foods. It's really, really difficult for us. But hydration's been something you've been more conscious of. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, hydrate. And I think certainly, this whole kind of sort of flip you down the head a little bit and get yourself up early in the morning. I think even just getting up, neck a pint of water before you go out into the garage, the gym, just to go and kind of do something. Just because I think that it just kickstarts your system, doesn't it? And it's been, nutrition wise, we've been certainly both of us been at home been trying to sort of look at what do we eat, how do we eat it, trying different things, and that's been another talk about opportunities in lockdown. Yeah. Again, let's just try different things. Get the cookbooks out again. Let's have a look to see what we can try and try different foods and see what else sort of takes your fancy, I suppose.
It's not hard, you've just got to be resourceful enough. It's not the information has never been so accessible as it has been before. Whether if you've got a cookbook, Google's there and it will tell you everything you need to know. You'll even speak it to you if you want to get yourself a £50 Alexa or whatever. They cannot make it any easier for us. We just have to inject a little bit of desire, a little bit of resourcefulness. So you've managed to get a little bit more of a handle on the nutrition side of it as well. So how far through are we now? I know you mentioned it earlier, but I just want to recap.
So 31,425 so far. I've started sort of ticking through the services and what have you, a number of services that have sort of gone through. So it's just been my sort of little way, I suppose, of almost saying, okay, right, yeah, there's another service done. So I've been ticking through those. I aim to finish May the 4th, I've got a little idea in my head about trying to do a little sweet finisher just to kind of finish things off, because I think it'd be quite nice to do something that we're fruity on the last day. Trying to get that organised at the moment as well.
That'd be awesome, because hopefully, we'll have a few more freedoms by then. So that'd be fantastic to see how you're going to kick that off to finish it. So I want to talk about the role that you do professionally now, because during our conversations leading up to this, I learned a little bit more about some of the breadth of experience you've had within the fire service, and more specific, your HMET role, which I think is something that we've not necessarily touched upon within the podcast before. So for people that are unfamiliar with that, and I think it's one of those real specialist subjects, I know you've gone off and done all sorts of qualifications as part of your operational role, but that's one that a lot of people aren't too familiar with. So what is it, and how do we utilize it in the service?
So the HMEPO, or the Hazmat Advisor, Hazard Materials Environmental Protection Officer is what that stands for. I undertook that role up until fairly recently. I've had to sort of hand that badge back, unfortunately, but I took that role on. Also managed to get the Detection, Identification and Monitoring Officer ticket as well. So we share, in Cambridgeshire, we share our response with Essex for the Eastern region. And certainly the Hazmat role, I think probably the best way is explained to me, just as we started the sort of 3-week course that we went on, was that we're a bit of a translator between the scientists that really know what they're talking about and the operational function.
Yeah.
And I was certainly one of those people. I've been involved with some hazmat incidents in the past, in my previous service, in my current service as well, where you kind of think, oh God, I just don't know what to do with this. And you kind of have this mindset in our heads all the way through that, it's gas tight suit, stand back, don't do anything, it's really dangerous. And we talk through contaminants, we talk through kind of going into a fire itself and actually the stuff that's in there, and what have you, that you start looking at some of the figures, you kind of go, hang on a second, it's almost like a chemical incident itself at points.
No, it can be, but that's scary for people, because we don't know enough about it, or do we know enough? It just scares us.
Exactly, and I think that's the thing, and certainly when through the courses, we probably never deal with just a single, or very rarely deal with just a single element that's just been tipped out. We deal with something that's gone wrong. We deal with a process potentially gone wrong. And the thing that I found really fascinating through the sort of hazmat, I suppose journey, but kind of learning that stuff is that I sort of went into it, and I was never really a science. I wasn't really enthralled with science at school, which I took more notice of. Honest with you, I absolutely wish I took more notice, but it always really interested me. And I think that there's some incredibly great minds out there. We've got some incredible reach back functions, and the HMA role is pretty much just to be able to say, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying there. This is what you're thinking about. This is what you're talking to about chemical reactions, about how that operates. I now need to put that into an operational context and advise the incident commander around, okay, I would recommend we think about this. And it's very much an advisory role. So yeah, I've really enjoyed that, and sort of linking that into the detection, identification, monitoring world as well. That's been absolutely fascinating, kind of, getting playing with other different bits of scientific kit and kind of getting involved with different operations and different incidents that you probably would never have seen before.
Do you see these functions becoming more or less of a significant part of the fire service? Because fires the amount of fires that we attend, certainly in the UK, in a great way, have reduced over the last decade and certainly a bit longer. And we've started to diversify in our role more and more. And both from a pandemic perspective, but also from a fire service at a large perspective, people speak about, getting back to the job, or this new normal that people speak about in various ways. I personally feel that the only sort of consistent that we're going to have now is change. Change is the only constant. We need to have that desire to keep learning and developing, both personally and professionally. Do you see the role of the fire service in the UK and at large? Do you see it diversifying further, or do you see us getting back to what most people would term as the old firefighter's role?
I think we'll always diversify, and I think we have to. I think that's just the sort of face of the modern fire service. We're always going to have a number of different changes in society. You only got to look at the relatively short amount of time that I've been in the organisation. How the incidents have changed, how the perception of us has changed. Thinking back to when I first joined, I never really even thought about terrorist activity and things like that, and some of the other awful atrocities that may happen. We're always going to have to diversify as a service, and I think as you mentioned, as incidents are dropping off, and we look at different routes of our incredible prevention work and that we do. We can't ever lose sight on our operational arm and being able to say to ourselves, okay, right, we need to make sure that we're ready, we're prepared, we're happy what we're doing, and take the hazmat world as an example. You don't get huge amounts of hazmat incidents, real killer hazmat incidents. When they do happen, eyes are on you. So you've got to keep yourself fresh. You've got to try and keep on top of those things and keep on top of the information coming out. And I think it's absolutely vital with training, with professional development. All of that stuff is so vitally important to make sure that we are ready to go at the drop of a hat when we do go out to those incidents.
A lot of those roles that you spoke about there, from my own experience, and I welcome if it's different in other services, tend to be offered to people or expected of people when they reach a certain level in an organisation. For example, station and or group area managers will take on a role of a HMAP or a tactical advisor of some form, or a fire inspector level 2 or something like that. Do you see a time when these skill sets are more open to wider audience in the fire service? Can you ever see a point where firefighters, because it's kind of recognizing people have different skill sets. We've referenced it already, the richness of the fire and rescue service is that we attract people at different stages of their life. I joined when I was 18, but people join in their 20s, 30s. One of my best friends has joined the fire service, and I believe he was in his early 50s, when he joined, maybe late 40s. He'll probably hit this and correct me, but he's a fantastic individual, and he's ran some very successful companies. For them to come into this world and have such a rich, diverse knowledge base, which we could all benefit from. And you see this a lot in the on-call and retained sectors. There's some incredible people in those sectors with some massive amount of knowledge. Yeah. But in the fire service, we're not necessarily great at recognising that. My question to you is, do you see any of that changing? And yourself as a leader, how do you encourage change? Because we're like, it's hard. We want to encourage change. People are scared of change, but then for people that have an appetite for it, there's a lot of barriers.
I think it's about removing those barriers, and that's our job, because I think that it's very easy to say, that's what you've always done, isn't it? Okay, it's always been attached to rank, it's always been attached to this. I think that certainly I've been very lucky, I suppose, certainly in this organisation that I'm in at the moment, that there's a huge focus on personal development. There's a huge amount of focus on kind of the right fit for the individual. So actually, if an individual has a real desire and inclination around a certain area, absolutely, we should celebrate that, and we should try and focus on that. We need to explore that more. We have to explore that further through professional discussions of individuals, career aspirations, planning people up, trying to prepare people for it, because I think otherwise you end up getting ourselves into a position where we react very late. So at the moment, I suppose my current position, looking after the protection department, I'm not a protection specialist. I find myself in this position and find it absolutely fascinating. But I have a real desire that I think, and coming from operational function, my protection knowledge was really low, and everyone used to talk about, it's the dark arts, it's the dark arts. But we've got individuals that
as well.
And this is the thing, and people use the term, but I think it couldn't be fundamentally more important. How buildings behave within fire. The expectations that we have against our operational crews. We need to be able to set them up, and we've got individuals that firefighter level right the way through that are really, really keen and actually say, I'm really interested in that. I really fancy a bit of fire protection.
And crew commanders all over the countries that run successful construction companies outside of the service, and even and everyone has a firefighter with a second job, men and women, and you think, God, what a valuable skill set. You've invested in yourself personally at no cost to the fire service. But we can forgive ignorance in retrospect. Do you know what I mean? But when we've had this moment, as you reference now, of acknowledgement, we go, I've had that moment of realization. I did that wrong. It's a little bit like saying, I drink too much alcohol. You can't, right, okay, great. Okay, not great, but you can't just keep referencing it. You can't just go, I really should drink less. I really should drink less. And we can't keep saying, we really should remove some of these barriers. Wait a minute, I'm in the position. Not saying you, but I write the policies, whoever this person may be. At a certain point, you find yourself in a room where you go, oh, hang on a minute, we are the people making these decisions. What is stopping us? Is it our fear of change? Do we just want to give it lip service? And you're right, and I acknowledge that there are those flickers. We're starting to see those sparks of desire for personal development, and there's some incentives and there's some temporary positions existing in certain roles, and even just our approach to learning and development, calling it learning and development in a lot of sectors rather than training school, calling it personnel rather than human resources. And I know these are just names, but it's another indicator that suggests we're moving to a more conscious approach to treating people as much more than just a resource.
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing, is there's people with exceptional ideas. We need to be ideas driven. We need to allow people to bring those forward. And we've probably all experienced it in a time where people sort of say, "Okay, thank you very much." Pardon the term, back in your box. Keep your ideas to yourself. Thank you very much. And I think that luckily is moving away. And I think that I think it's about mutual respect, isn't it? Certainly, for me, I always sort of think that if someone comes to me with a great idea, happy days, we should celebrate that. We need to move on with that. We need to try and think of any way that we can try and do it. Sometimes we won't be able to. Sometimes it's just that we can't physically get something done. Yeah. Great. But we've got to explore things. I think we've got to have that mutual respect across the whole service to be able to say, bring ideas forward, throw ideas forward, because if we start trampling on people's ideas at the outset, people go, okay, I won't bother then. I'll just sit back and...
You can't keep giving ideas. Giving ideas is like throwing pennies into a well. If you don't hear any splash back, you're just going to stop throwing pennies. You're just going to stop doing it. And this isn't about say, I gave Simon the idea and he's done nothing with it. Well, hang on a minute. I'm here to, I'm a facilitator. I'm here to acknowledge and empower you, remove barriers. Absolutely. And a lot of these aren't about money. Do you know what I mean? We're not writing blank checks, number one, but number two, a lot of these are inexpensive. A lot of the changes, a lot of the best things about the fire service are all geared around behavioural change anyway. It's about not having the resources to do our job. It's just about the way we do it. And the very nature of who we are professional problem solvers. So we're pretty resourceful people if you just remove some of the cultural aspects that hamstring people's desire to take action on their resourcefulness.
that's exactly right. People are passionate about this job. People are passionate in their roles, and I think that the last thing we can ever do, but whilst we're in this sort of, I always sort of think, I'm holding the place. That's pretty much it. There's going to be loads of other people coming after me.
Fire service was here long before us, and it'll be here long after.
Exactly, and all we can do is to try and be a good guardian for this at this present moment, and effectively look after it, nurture it, try and encourage, move things along as best we possibly can. And I think, my whole career has been based on change. I've always looked at, I've moved services, moved around different stations, and it's not just because of the fact that I've kind of gone, I don't really want to be there. I've absolutely loved every single place I've been at, working with some incredible people, and I count myself very, very fortunate that I had some exceptionally great people when I first joined the organisation that sort of took me under their wing and taught me some of the real core stuff and core values of the organisation, and that continues. And I think that, I guess the thing we've all got to try and, do, preaching out now, but I think what's really important is sort of looking at how we can carry on trying to better ourselves, again, not just for ourselves, but for everyone else around us. How can we better things for our team? How can we support each other? And be very mindful that everyone's got their individuality, everyone's got their own different opinions and different processes and what have you. We've just got to be respectful for that and say, that's fine, absolutely. Sometimes we won't agree. Sometimes we'll have might have a Barney in an office and come out and go, yeah, it's fine. We've closed off. That's great. That's great. Let's get the conversation out. That's what we need to do.
Well.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing is, I think that I see it so much more, probably as a society now, we have more respect for each other and individualism. I think that really comes out.
And it is, you're right. There's aspects there I hear of being more accepting, but also being a little bit more selfish. And we've referenced it. I would like to change the way people see the word selfish, because it's vilified quite a lot. But if you selfishly do a little bit of personal development, and even if you're just turning the temperature up 1 or 2 degrees on your own personal standards, or just banging off the proverbial rust in your own values and your own expectations of what you're capable of, that inevitably turns up the temperature in the room. Do you know what I mean? If everyone just gets 1 or 2 degrees warmer, then as a collective, because as the emergency services, we are nothing but a group of individuals that can then collectively achieve something fantastic. But we all bring our own, even when we use the example of your role, HMEP or a DIM officer, it's no different than on a team. You've got the driver, you've got the incident commander, you've got the BA wearer, you've got the water specialist, you've got the techie, all this sort of stuff. But if we all just work on that 1 or 2% gain collectively, it's like that rising tide raises all the ships, because we adjust our standards. We all tighten the ratchet up one more click, and all of a sudden it's like the gears mesh. And that's when you see a team, all holding each other accountable. And it feels so good when you're held accountable to your own best standard, not held accountable to something unrealistic. That can be quite disengaging. But when you know it's something that you're capable of and that someone's got your best interests at heart, that's where you just, that's what people think of externally when they think of the fire service. And when I see wonderful teams in the fire service, that's what I see, is a group of individuals holding each other accountable, and they love it. They love going to work. And the place is no different. People say, it's rubbish at station, whatever. It's not at all. It's the people. The equipment is largely the same everywhere. The policies are largely the same. The pay outside of some massive cities doesn't really change. But even in a massive city, it's relative to its economy. The difference is always the people. It's always the people. And that is largely in our control. We try and moan about the policies. We try and moan about COVID. We try and moan about the pensions or whatever. Largely outside of our control. The difference I feel between those who love the job and those who struggle with it on a daily basis is the people they're surrounded themselves with and where they're choosing to place their focus.
And I think you mentioned about control and mentioned about focus, and I think it's absolutely key. There's so many things within our world that aren't in our control, and it is completely about, okay, let's look at our own environment, and all the marginal gains, all the stuff that went through, like Team Sky, might be, didn't they? The cyclist team might be that, all this marginal gain, and I think that concept is incredible, and absolutely, we can always sometimes put ourselves under a huge amount of pressure. We need to try and achieve this yesterday. We need to try and get this done. We need to try and get that done. But I think that once you get that kind of mind, get that sort of team ethic, and certainly it feels that way. Like I said, in Cambridgeshire at the moment, where I'm currently serving, that people are just passionate. People want to come forward. They get in. They throw ideas forward, and it's about these little marginal gains. And it's like that's great. That's absolutely great. We need to focus in on that and say, yeah, it's great. Something was in your control. You want to try and change. Let's have a look at it. Let's try and see if we can dust it off and see what we can do.
And I think now more than ever, it's so important, because when we think about onboarding people, what culture are they getting into? What is the temperature of the pool that they're getting into? Because I feel, and we all live in a little bit of a bubble, but I would like to speak on behalf of the UK. I feel like there's a lot of recruitment going on across the UK at the moment. I don't know how it is where you are. I've seen some big surges, certainly around the East Midlands, around where I live. There's a lot of recruitment going on. There's a lot of people we're onboarding. Now, historically, when you see recruitment process of 20, 30 people, it's no better or worse because every individual is important, but it's a bit like you're being thrown a ball and you dropped it and you're like, well, okay, that process wasn't great, but there was only 20, 30 people. We're having a lot of recruitment now. A couple of hundred people entering different fire services all over the UK. I know in our service, there's been a massive shift. It's something like 40% of the operational personnel are going to have transitioned over about a 3 or 4 year period, which is a very large number in a very short period of time. Consider when you think of the cultural aspect, a culture taking between 3 and 5 years to develop. This is where you really need to pay attention, because I'm about to throw a lot of balls at you very quickly, and I would love for you not to drop many of them at all, because we invest a lot in people. We really do, from training to protection to even just emotionally. We give a lot of time and we invest into people. So I think now, all that we've got a lot of demands. I get it. There's so many, everything's a priority, but the people aspect, and that's why, it's why I love the podcast. It's why I love connecting with people like you, because we need to see this as a priority. The fire service is just a thing. It's just a name and it's just a badge. People say, oh no, it's more than that. Yes, it is more than that, because of the people that are in it. Yeah, it's just a thing. It's not made great because of what it's called. It's made great because of the people that are in it. Let's not just say that. Let's do it. And I love to see that, and I love to see people like yourselves in a position where you can act on that, and you are acting on it.
Exactly, and you're completely right. I mean, we've had a huge change, a huge shift in experience in the organisation, and will it slow down? I suppose it slowed down very marginally for us, I guess, recently. But we've had a massive change. Even points you sort of find yourself wandering out to stations that you've been on, and you kind of go, oh my God, where have all these people come from? They've completely changed. And certainly even worse now through lockdown, I sort of suddenly go back onto a station. There's a couple more people joined. We've had people join through COVID. I changed my job through COVID.
And people that have been in it 8 years, they're like the old hand on the watch now. Yeah. They've been less than a decade. And you're like, whoa. Yeah, and it's absolutely mad. And this is the thing, and you think like all that incredible experience that has left the building to a certain extent. Like I said, when we talk about opportunity, we have this amazing opportunity for the culture of the organisation, for the culture of the service to make it what we want it to be. And certainly, like I said, we went through a huge journey around kind of personal development, looking at different programs and stuff that invite people in to start thinking about kind of engaging development, but in a different way. There's development all day long, but like you said about the equipment will always be there. Pick up a set of cutters. You can always talk through a set of cutters, look at cutting. I think we hide behind that. We hide behind it sometimes, because it's not easy, but it's easier because we're good at it. I suppose it's the really naturally fun bit, isn't it? It's the bit that you kind of join your job for. And you think, I'm getting paid to cut a car up or to jump into a smoke-filled building, and kind of like incredible, absolutely amazing. Like times, there's people that pay good money to come and do that, isn't there? And that's the thing. And I don't want to change that. I know we don't want to change that. No, never. And that's the thing, and that's really important. We focus a lot of, and rightly so, value time on doing that stuff. But there's also the other part, actually, the part when we're all sat there around together, how people behave, how people are acting, how people engage with each other, in my view. And that's challenging. And certainly within a culture like the fire service, where you might be, and certainly at the moment, you're in a bit of a hot box situation where you're either detached from each other, you haven't got that face-to-face contact, you haven't got the opportunity to bounce off each other. We've certainly experienced that as an organisation, that even just having a chat with someone in the corridor over a cup of coffee as you're walking past them, or just seeing other people apart from my 2-year-old smacking me in the head every day, just seeing other people and engaging with them. And that's why I think so there's been a huge push, certainly over the last 10 years or so in our service, where it's been really focused around people and personal development and understanding. And that's certainly where I mentioned earlier on, real desire for myself to understand sort of how the mind works, how kind of you can interact with other people, and what things I will do that might impact others. And
that's been really, really important, I think. And I think that will continue to be a really important focus for us as a service, I think, or as services across the country. And we don't open our brains up to that sort of stuff enough. We don't spend enough time just saying... We don't
celebrate enough either way. We don't celebrate each other enough. And that's what this is all about for me. People say, "Oh, fire service is great. Well, I love the team. I love the team." Well, let's scream about it then. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. Let's not scream about it. I'm not going, "Oh, you're amazing." No, you're amazing. Do you know what I mean? But it's Sabrina Hackney, she's not special. Do you know what I mean? And I say that with respect, because what I mean by that is Simon's story is interesting to somebody. Many people, your story will connect with them far more than him. Callum, when he spoke about having seizures and stuff like that and being told he could never do the job again, you being told, "Oh, you can't get into the Marines," and "Oh, well, I can't get into the fire service." How many people have been at that crossroads in their life and gone, "I was going to be in the fire service once and then I hurt my knee." "Oh yeah, right. Well, so did Simon." And then he went, I would never say that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I want us to recognise each other rather than going, "Oh yeah, I did overcome that, but it was nothing really." And I'm like, no, it is something, Simon. It's interesting.
I remember, because the knee wasn't just the only thing, because I failed on my eyesight test when I finally got in, because they messaged us and said, "Because of the national strikes, thanks, go and find another job." And I remember I was walking in, I went to join the RAF in the end, because I was like, "Okay, I'll go in the RAF medically." I was like, "I want to go and be a pilot or something." They went, "No, your eyesight's not quite there." I was like, "Give me a break." So I was walking into the RAF office to sign up for like an intelligence unit, and I got a call because effectively I got told I went for a medical. I remember at Specsavers, and literally the guy went in there and he said to me, he's like, "Okay, right, can you read this sign?" And I've been like resting my eyes for 2 weeks trying to get them right, and I was like, trying to read it. He said, "Okay, we'll just put some glasses on. Okay, is it better with or without?" And done this. And I was like, "No, mate, I'm here for medical." And he was like, "What's that for?" I said, "The fire service." And he was like, "Oh, sorry, we failed that." And it was devastating. I had 2 years waiting to get into the fire service, and they just pulled the plug on it. Done. And I remember I picked up the phone, and I was completely unprofessional. I picked up the phone to who became, I think, the deputy chief in Suffolk in the end, but he was a DO at the time. I picked him up and basically said, like, "I'm getting into this service. You're not going to stop me. I'm coming in. I'm coming in." And he was like, "You're not. Go and get another job." And I kept ringing him every day. And I was like, please get me in. And he was like, "Nope, no, you failed a medical. You can't come in." And eventually he said, "Look, sorry, just go and get another job, Simon. You're done." Yeah. And I was like, "Okay, cool. All right." And I got a phone call. And it was actually funny. Ken C, who was the then deputy, said, because I sort of said, "You've got a disparity on call. You can be 612 vision, and the whole time you've got to be 6'6". Yeah. And I said, "You're doing the same thing." I said, "You talk about doing the same job." And I was like, "So why can't I come in? Because I've got 675." And they were like, "Good point." In you come. And I think this is the thing. You want it enough, you're going to push yourself for it. You're going to go for it. And I think that, it's, I find the whole thing fascinating. We mentioned, we touched on, didn't we, that you see some people come into services and you're a bit like, you're not given any thought to this. You've almost just kind of gone, "Oh yeah, fire service is quite cool, go and do that."
You almost just want to say, "Go away."
No, exactly.
This is something really special to me. It's really special. I'm going to share it with you. And they go, "Oh yeah," and they've dropped it on the floor, and you're like, that is really important to me.
Exactly. But no, it's a fascinating time, isn't it? It's the thing, and that's why I think, this whole thing of sort of sharing different experiences, sharing different stories and what have you, because it's just like, "Oh God, everything's rubbish." And you then go, "It's not. It's not. Really not."
We've got so many great opportunities, and I want people to hear it, and I want people to see it, and I want to celebrate and champion people that are willing to share their stories, so that the optimists don't feel so alone, and hopefully we can convert a few as well.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. A bit of positivity out there, get people going along.
But also, no, mate, I really do take your time and your words and your story with absolute respect. I want to finish by, and we've spoken a lot about recruitment now, I think it's a wonderful place to finish, because I wanted you to take us back by, why did you first join? And sort of, if you were speaking to the Simon of all those years ago, what advice would you give somebody entering the sector? Because like you said, there's a lot of people going for recruitment now, and what made you want to get into it, and what advice would you give? So
I suppose for me, I originally wanted to go in the forces. I was, taking it right back. I remember 14 years old, a Royal Marine came into our school to kind of talk to us about joining the Marines. And funny enough, I taught her press-ups. It's exactly what he'd done. He came in and was just like, "Right, who could take me on for some press-ups?" And again, there's a bunch of us who were like, "Yeah, come on in, mate, let's have it." And this guy was a machine, and we were just like, "Oh my God," in awe, absolutely in awe about and I think when you're sort of looking at, people that are really interested in fitness back then, that was like something triggered, and I was like, I'd love to go and do that. And certainly, my family, they were really supportive. And they said, you want to get yourself into a position where you can kind of, go into the forces, go into the services, go and give something back. And that was always something that I suppose I'd worked at from a very young age, trying to do things, doing things like first aid and all this sort of stuff, Yeah. And so, unfortunately, at the age of 16, I shattered my kneecap, which is my knee injury, and they kind of went,
"How did you do that?"
A motorbike accident. Someone pulled in front of me. I just went straight over the top of the car, and it was right at the point where I was doing loads of rugby training, loads of running, like gearing myself up, because I'd applied for the Marines, and they basically said, "Sorry, you've missed the application date. Like, you have to wait a couple of months now." And I was like, "Oh, what am I going to do?" A couple of months for me felt like a lifetime at the age of, I was 16. I was like, I don't know what to do now. And they said, what can you do? I said, I can go to college. And they said, oh, yeah, do it. Go to college and then come in a couple of years. So that's where I went. And within the first couple of months of being at college, traveling back from college one day, the accident happened, and it was devastating. You kind of look at it and think, that's it, it's done. And certainly for me, I was then a bit like, what do I do? And one of my friends, who's funny enough now in the same service to me, we sat down at the sixth form one day, and he said, oh, I fancy the fire service. At the time, Suffolk were recruiting, and I was like, oh, yeah, you know what? That sounds really interesting. And that was it. And at the point I walked onto a fire station, I walked into a local station, and the guys were incredible. They literally were like, here you come, right, there's a cup of coffee, this is what it's about. Yeah. And I was hooked, absolutely hooked from that point. And I was like, this is what I need to do. So yeah, I think certainly advice, and certainly the bit I went through at the time was, there's loads of issues, going for the fitness test. And I was sitting there in the lecture room, loads of people around me, and there's some real, I was 10.5 stone, I think, 18-year-old kind of tiny like lad. And there's all these big people, and they're going, I'm going to go to this station, we go to that station. It was really kind of overwhelming. I was a bit like, oh my God. And went for my medical assessment, and they said, oh, you've had a knee operation, you can't do it. And I was like, no, I can. Let me prove to you. And I think when something's that important to you, you need to fight for it. And I think one of the key things for me is every station out in the country is really accepting of people coming in to understand about the job. And if I was to sort of give any advice to anybody wanting to join the organisation, is do your research. I sit there sometimes and in an interview, and you ask the question about, what do you understand about the UK Fire and Rescue Service? What do you understand about our fire service? And it's amazing at times that people come in not prepared, and you just think, you're coming for a job. You're coming into a world. You've got to do your research. You've got to spend some time. Go out to stations, speak to people, understand.
It's not like you've got to send off for a prospectus, and it's not like you're applying for a really weird new thing that's a small company that's hard to. It's the fire service, for God's sake.
Exactly. And this is the thing, and people love talking about the fire service. Anyone in the fire service will talk about the fire service. And so having somebody come in and saying, talk me through what you do. Talk me through, for me, what you're currently doing, what you're planning to do. Where's the fire service going in the future? Because certainly us, and all services, we're recruiting for people of the future. We're recruiting for people that are going to carry on the organisation and the incredible reputation that we've got as a service for years to come. So you kind of got to prepare yourself to go into that environment. So I think it's really important. And
even if you're not the sort of person that likes to sit and read, or you feel like you can't travel, there's apparently some amazing podcasts out there now that you can learn a lot about.
Yeah, exactly. This thing, tune into the podcast.
You get the odd weirdo on there who's doing thousands of press ups, but other than that, it's pretty insightful. It's pretty educational stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many ways for people to learn stuff. Is the point I make. Some people are, I'm not really much of a reader, or I struggle with social interactions. I'm like, look, if you're resourceful enough, you'll find a way. Books, videos, YouTube. Go and see somebody. If you're more of a kinesthetic, like you say, go to a station. Even social distancing aside, you can still put a mask on and wave from a distance and ask, or ring them up. Do you know what I mean? There's so many ways to learn.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. And I think, it's using the opportunities to kind of prepare yourself for it, because, even things like you go on a walk, like you said, you mentioned the podcast, bang your podcast on, go and listen to it. And this is the thing about, we talk about personal development. Use all the opportunity you possibly can to try and better yourself.
Even audiobooks. Sabrina Hatton-Cohen, and there's Firewoman, and there's some great books out there. They're really, and people hear books and they switch off. It's really engaging. Some of the stuff is really engaging. It's really interesting, and you can get head over heels in love with it. You just get lost out on a walk. You do another 10 miles just so you can finish the next chapter.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And we don't have a huge amount of time, do we? To sit and read, and it's devastating. We'd love to all have more time to be able to read and do things like that. But use the opportunity to do stuff. And I think certainly, I suppose, looking at looking at everyone joining the organisations now, I think the biggest thing that's been incredible for me in my journey since I joined in 2004 has been opening my mind to stuff and keeping fresh and current with stuff. Because I think, at the point that I moved services, because my personal life was sort of heading further into Cambridgeshire, and my work life was probably heading further into Suffolk, I had to make at the time the real devastating choice to move. I loved Suffolk, absolutely incredible time over there, and equally I love my time in Cambridgeshire. And I think that what's been the most empowering thing is being able to say, okay, I've moved around different stations, had a look at different things, and opened up. And you speak to so many people that have probably done 15, 20, even sometimes 25 years that suddenly go, oh, I've made a move to a different station. I wish I'd have done that 10, 15 years ago.
It's not because anybody's better or worse, because if you've not done something, you've not done it. So you go, oh, but no, White Watch, whatever, is the best, what is the best, what, yeah. But you know what? They don't do water, or they don't do Swift-Ret, or they don't do this, or they've just never attended a rope incident, or they're not specialists in community safety because they haven't got that thing on their patch, or they haven't got an airport on their patch. And don't be so, like you say, closed-minded that your little bubble is the best bubble to be in. It's a really great bubble. It's fantastic. It's full of really rich, gregarious, interesting people. And so is the next station. Do you know what I mean? They will, not because they're better or worse, but they have just attended incidents that you will have never been to. Absolutely.
And I think it's really important to, if you can, if you feel happy to, and if your life allows, because some people, I absolutely understand you're moving locations and stuff, very, very challenging, you can't do it. But wherever it allows, try and open yourself up, try and seek mentors, seek coaches. Probably one of the best piece of advice that someone said to me, and actually at one point it was almost enforced upon us, you will go and get a coach, you will go and get a mentor. But I've got a coach. Actually,
I've got one for about 4 years, and people say, oh, who pays for that? Personal development. I pay for it. If I leave the fire service tomorrow, it's still going to benefit me. It benefits me as a person, me and my family, everything I do.
Absolutely, and I think it's imperative that you seek out those things, both internally and externally of the organisation. Again, I had an external coach that I've been working with relatively recently, and it just opens your mind up massively. You just look at things from a completely different point of view, and even from we digress, but even from the point of view of this whole rest and recovery thing. Again, we're all at 100 miles an hour. Even when your days off, you sort of pick up your computer, doing a bit of work, email, doing this, doing that. Yeah. And it's like, actually, it wasn't until someone sat down and talked to me about how elite athletes will train around rest and recovery, you kind of go, oh, hang on a second, put that into your day life, put that into your normal practice of your life. And I'd never have got that unless I had an external coach.
It's not to beat yourself over the head. You can't see the picture when you're in the frame. You're just so busy running around in circles. It's hard to lift your head up and get that view, and also to know that you never arrive. There's no surprise that even people, as you move higher in organisations or even in sport, we reference a professional athlete. Professional athletes have coaches, and you go, well, I don't need a coach. I'm at this level in the organisation. I'm at this level in my sport. I'm at this level in life. I'm 40 years old. I should know it by now. Well, no, not necessarily. A top athlete has a coach because there's many different aspects to hold them accountable to, but also to reflect upon. It's hard to, even at that level, to have enough self-awareness because you can't see things that other people can see. To hold that proverbial mirror up from somebody else's perspective really helps you see those blind spots.
And this is the thing. I think that we've historically, I suppose, fallen into a trap that people sort of see that you get a mentor, you get a coach for promotion processes, and it's like no, it's not about that, because actually people, the career firefighters, they're absolutely incredible, but we need to offer development and professional development and individual development for everyone across the organisation.
That's lateral. It's not just vertical.
No, absolutely not. And it can't be, because otherwise it becomes very, very two-dimensional. You've got to be able to say, okay, no, we want to, and I think, again, talking through kind of, I suppose, words of advice is just around open yourself up to that. People sometimes box themselves in and think, oh, I'm just a firefighter. And I hate that term. I absolutely hate it. No one's just a firefighter. A firefighter is the most incredible professional individual you can probably come across. And you can either be incredibly professional with your job, or you can be not very professional with your job. And I think that, you have to open yourself up to that. You have to expand your knowledge, expand your opportunity to learn.
And I've seen it as well. When we speak about laterally, to just do a professional nod to people such as your partner as well. Try and, if you get the opportunity to have a secondment, yes, non-operational, move out of there and get a wider understanding and appreciation, build connections with other parts of your services that tighten the threads between all of these, what can be silos, and all of a sudden the whole thing starts to move much more fluidly because we don't bash up against other departments so violently because we've got those connections. Take a 6 months secondment. Yes, get off the pumps for a second and go and do that and then come back. Or maybe, there's lots of ways to develop. It hasn't always got to be, well, I'm not going to do that as a group manager secondment. I need to promotion. Well, no, you need a bit more lateral development.
And nothing's irreversible. And this is the thing is you can quite easily go for a couple of months.
Nothing's forever.
No, exactly. And likewise, actually, some of the greatest development that I've experienced in the service is just picking up the phone to other people. There's professional support staff in different departments. I kind of go, I don't know what they do, and through the journey, it's like, okay, well, the only way I can learn is I'll pick up the phone and say, have you got an hour? Can we just literally just chat about what you do for a job? And it's incredible. It opens your eyes and you start seeing things from a completely different angle. Because
Pre-COVID time, one of my favourite things to do with recruits, I've not done it in the last 6 months, even though we've had no recruits on station, but I always love to put in the training diary that we're going to go to control once in a day and once in an evening, just for like a 2-hour window, obviously organise it with the watch, and we just go and sit in the back of the room and ask the odd question, because more often than not, control are the tip of the sword. They know the latest operational procedures, they get the latest bulletins because they need to be able to act on correct, up-to-date information as soon as possible. And you learn so much because they're almost the pulse of the organisation. They're open, everybody's open 24/7, I get it, but they're there 24/7. They ain't sleeping, do you know what I mean? And it's a great place.
It's hard there as well.
It's very hard, and I appreciate a lot of them have been in an even stronger lockdown than most people because we need to keep them all fit and healthy, as so we should. But when it reopens up, I'd strongly encourage anybody, if you're on a secondment or if you're on a round robin as a new recruit or something like that, say, hey, can we head over to control? If it's okay, can we organise to go and visit them? And equally, an afternoon in the risk department or an afternoon in the community safety department is really useful. And also it acknowledges other people. People like to talk about what they do. Give them opportunity to tap dance their intellectual capability and their own knowledge, because you will learn a lot and you'll build a great connection.
And I think that's the only way that, we talk about changing the organisation. We've got a huge amount of change that come down the pipeline still for us. We know there's going to be ongoing pressures, for the fire service for years to come, and that will never go away. And I think the only way you can truly get through that is by tying in together, and is by breaking down all the barriers. We talk about it a lot, and the term silo working comes in a huge amount within the organisations at the moment. And yeah, absolutely, we have to try and, whatever we possibly do, is to try and break that down, because when we start getting our understanding of what other people do, it strengthens your position. You start thinking, actually, we can do things in a completely different way to what we ever thought about, because like if somebody's come into the organisation, we talk about the use of the resources we've got in the service. The services have got an unbelievable resource in the people, and we have to use it rightly.
And as soon as you want to mobilise a change as well, as soon as that moment strikes and you need to mobilise a team, it is very, very rarely just includes you or your watch or even your station. You can mobilise quickly from across sectors because you've already invested the time. You've already invested in them.
Yeah.
Simon,
absolutely.
I've loved our conversation today, mate. That has been such a rich... We've covered so many things that I never envisaged we'd go to, and I feel really lucky and blessed that you've taken time away from your role in your family to be here with us today. A quick check-in and accountability. What count are we at today, brother?
Count-wise, I'm at 200 for the day, and like I said, in total 31,425 to date. So I've got another 150 to get done today, or probably a little bit more, because I do have to try and catch up a little bit from last week.
Half an hour worth of squats this morning. I've walked the dog, but not hit any press ups yet. I'm going to have to give it a little bit of go this afternoon. I'll wait till my daughter gets home, and then when somebody walks in, I'll be like 106. Sorry, baby, I was just getting a pump. I'll have it me later on.
I felt my daughter's been the biggest taskmaster. I called her like a mini Joe Wick the other day, because she literally said to me, she was like, Daddy, press ups, and I was like, oh, okay, we're going to do that, are we? So I was like, okay, quickly do 25 in video, and she loves the fact that I video them, so she jumps in the frame sometimes, and she's like, okay, let's run, and I'm like, well, okay, so she start running the spot, more press ups, and I'm like,
This isn't part of the program.
On me.
This isn't part of
I was like, I'm on a rest now. I'm not doing any more. I've hit another 50 or 60, 50 or 75. I need to rest for a couple of minutes. She's like, no more, put more press ups. I'm like, oh, good on her. But
you know what though?
great.
If she maintains that until whatever 17, 18, she'll be in great standing because of the influences and the examples you guys have set. Simon, thank you so much for your time today, brother. Please stay safe and sound. Send love to the family, send love to the team, and I really look forward to speaking to you soon.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
Si, how's it going, my man?
Yeah, good, thank you. How's things?
I am fantastic, brother. So I saw across all of our social media platforms that you have been victorious. We've just been listening to the challenge that's been ongoing. Back when we spoke, you had up to 33,000 and something else. And I'll be honest, mate, I was worried about you. We still had a long way to go.
Yeah, it certainly. There was a few weeks leading up towards the end that things were starting to get a little bit
hairy. What was the finisher like?
Exactly.
I saw you did your final 25 with the team or something.
Yeah, so the last operational station I worked at was Cambridge. What I always wanted to try and do was complete the last set with a watch, with those that are currently on the trucks doing the good job. Yeah, I was amazing. And that's the thing. I think the other piece of the puzzle was I wanted to also recognise those that unfortunately didn't see their tour of duty out from 1974. So took it from the point that the fire service reformed. From that point forward, we located 88 members of staff that had tragically lost their lives. So the idea was always a case that we'd try and do something, and the idea fully kitted burpees, BA, and devastatingly we've lost 3 members of staff this last year and a half. So we had those. So there was 91 in total, so 91 burpees. They read through the names, and it's a really poignant moment, and certainly something to kind of reset you a little bit, I think, on Firefighters Memorial Day, to kind of understand and almost just reflect about how lucky we all are. It's had a really good response, and I think certainly from a fundraising point of view, absolutely buzzing to be able to hit the target and go beyond.
Send lots of love to the family, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, likewise.
Take care, Si. Bye-bye.
Nice one. Yeah, take care. You really appreciate it. Bye.
There you have it, folks. That was my conversation with Simon Thompson. God, that chat went everywhere, didn't it? When you just meet one of those people and you just can't help but try and put the world to rights. Now, neither myself nor Simon would proclaim ourselves to be an expert in any of the fields we've explored today, but hopefully you've taken some value from turning over those ideas, those dilemmas, those challenges that we face in the UK fire service. But let's not be naive. These are things I've no doubt exist all over the world in similar sectors. So hopefully if you are one of those serial optimists that's pushing for a little bit of change where you work, hopefully you've taken some motivation from today. Hopefully you realize you're not alone. Hopefully, if you're a crazy optimist like we are, know that you are supported, know that you're not alone, and know that you are making a difference. All of the links and all of the details, the things we discussed today, will be in the show notes, so have a look below. Be sure to jump on the mailing list so you hear about new episodes as soon as they come out, and also, there's the odd little treat comes out as well. From a sponsor, from a guest. It might be a nugget of information, or it might be a little gift from us. So jump on the mailing list. It's the first link in the show notes. Make sure you're the first ones to know when new episodes comes out, and you can stay at the forefront of the voice of the emergency services. Also, if you want to acknowledge Simon yourself and you want to show him your support, the donation, which we didn't mention too much about in the episode, that link is below as well. So if you want to donate to the great cause, if you think what Simon's doing is pretty intense and pretty challenging, and you want to admire it, you want to acknowledge it, you want to support it, you can donate by the link below. If you think it's really easy, then I'd like to see you do it. I'm only playing with you. There's always a way to challenge yourself. So know that if you want to be the best version of yourself, find out that challenge and acknowledge and support those who are also challenging themselves. More important than any of that, look after yourself, develop each other, and hopefully today that's come in the form of this podcast. Hopefully you walk away a better person than you arrived. Hopefully you have an idea that you can go away and implement. Thank you so much for coming back to the Firefighters podcast. I do not take your time and your attention and your focus for granted. It is the one irredeemable asset, the time you have spent with us today. You are not getting it back, so hopefully you thought it was worth it. And if you do, then I know for sure we're going to see you back here real soon on the Firefighters podcast.